Welcome to everybody who joined our session today about SAP Business Application Studio's low-code tooling and how to use it to build native mobile apps. I'm here with Ludo. We'll meet in just a moment, but a few housekeeping items. As with all Devtoberfest sessions, you can earn points just by attending. So after attending today's low-code, no-code sessions live or on replay, make sure to complete the validation tutorial, which I pinned in the chat. Second, I just want to again highlight the a session that we'll have in the afternoon called The Best of Both Worlds. And it highlights how to use the low-code tooling, but still have access to the code underneath within Business Application Studio. And finally, of course, you can see all of the sessions for Devtoberfest, including all of the Thursday low-code, no-code sessions in the Devtoberfest group within the SAP community. So I now want to welcome Ludo to talk about the topic of mobile applications with the visual tooling. Ludo is the product owner, so he's basically responsible for all of the low-code tooling. So you can thank him. Anyway, welcome, Ludo.
Okay, so let me share my screen.
Sure, go ahead.
I hope that worked.
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay. So thank you, Daniel, for the intro. I'm Ludo Noens. I'm based in Singapore, and I work at SAP Labs Singapore, where I focus on low-code tools. And what I'm going to showcase here is actually what we have been working on in the past years, and we have combined that into an extension in Business Application Studio, where we have introduced a low-code perspective. So for this session, I will focus on mobile, because that's actually also my specialty. And what we have on the agenda. So I'll first go into what we cover in this session, and I'll go through the prerequisites. That's 7 steps. And basically, I'll go through that pretty fast. Then I'll introduce the low-code perspective. And then we start deploying applications. And first of all, we deploy the database, the services, and the web application, which I actually already done in the background, but that's just to, let's say, give some more time for mobile. And after that, we'll do some iterations on the application that we are using. So what I'll cover in this session is basically we're using a sample e-commerce application, and that will be loaded in SAP Business Application Studio. The deployment is already done, so I'll skip that for the live demo. Then before we explore the application itself, we'll spend some time to quickly run through the prerequisites to set up your cloud environments, because some of these steps are non-trivial at this point. And I'll focus on deployment of the app for mobile and get it running on a phone, in this case, my iPhone. And then after the initial deployment, we can do some iterations on the application using our toolchain. So just a quick introduction on SAP Business Application Studio for the low-code approach. So we basically offer a low-code development environment that's tailored towards efficient development of business applications for the intelligent enterprise. And what we offer is an easy path from low-code tools to professional development tools. Our unique selling point for us is the tight integration with SAP services, technologies, and systems. And our IDE is based on the best of breed and offers you the ability to build enterprise-ready applications out of the box that utilize those SAP services and best practices. So let's get started with the prerequisites. This is the list that you will need. I assume that most of the users here are using the trial landscape, but also users who have access to a paid account can go through this tutorial. Entitlements that you are required and subscriptions that you need are Business Application Studio, HANA Cloud, mobile services, Launchpad, and in addition, process automation. And let me quickly go through the steps. So the first thing that you need is an account, in the case you're using trial, is an account on US East. That's the only region that we support for this scenario, because in the region Singapore, there are some services missing, so you can't use it there. Just to mention, if you use the trial account, it comes automatically with a subscription to Business Application Studio, and all the entitlements that you require here are coming out of the box. First step, this is a bit of a complicated step. So when you get into your trial sub-account cockpit, you need to go to your space called dev. You can manage. You can actually navigate through several routes, but this is one of the routes that you can use. On the left-hand side, you have a Cloud Foundry tab. You can select space there, and then you can select your dev space. When you are there, let's say that's then what you can see in the picture here already. You have to select the HANA Cloud tab, and then select Create SAP HANA Database. What's important then is actually you get into the HANA, SAP HANA Cloud Central configuration wizard. You provide a name there and a passcode. But the important step is to mention is if you are using a trial account, that you in wizard step 5, you have to set the allowed connections to allow all IP addresses. If you miss that part, then your deployments will fail. So make sure that when you get on this page, you select allow all IP addresses. The creation of the database will take some time, can take up to, let's say, 10 minutes. So I'll not demo that here. Just take note of that. Another thing to take note of is that if you are using trial and you haven't used that database for approximately 2 hours, it will be automatically stopped. So that's to save some costs on our side. Just take note of that. You have to restart it then. Other things that we need is mobile services. You can find it in the service marketplace. You just provide a name and you click Create. SAP Process Automation, that's also available in Service Marketplace. You just need to click the Create button. Launchpad service, and for that you need both the instance as well as the subscription. So you need to do this actually twice to create. And then you need to set up your roles. So in your cockpit, you have to use the security tab, select users, and then for your user, open up the assignment of the role collection and basically assign the roles mentioned here. If you go through these steps in the sequence that I mentioned, you don't need to do the step below, but in case you might have tried a different route, then you could face issues with accessing the lobby in this case. And if that's the case, then I should recommend to log out and log in again to ensure that your rules for your user are actually activated. Normally you don't need it, but just in case that you run into that. Then basically you need to wait a bit for the HANA database to get up and running. Once all the boxes are green here, you can actually open up the low-code perspective in this case by opening up SAP Process Automation. So let's now get to the low-code perspective, and we start from the so-called lobby, or as we call it here, application development. This is the starting point. And for this demonstration, I will be using the quick start. There's one of the tiles available here in the quick start list. It's called Create a Sample E-commerce Application. So when you click on that button, a pop-up will appear asking you for a project name. I gave it my own name here, and then you click Create, which will open up Business Application Studio. This can take a few minutes to get started if you didn't start that space yet. But eventually you'll get into this page, which is the home page for the low-code perspective. As you can see, what you have there is an overview of the building blocks of your application. So basically you have data models, services, sample data, your user interfaces. In this case, it's one, and that's the one that is mobile centric. You could also add external data models, but in this case, for this example, we are not using that. And you could also customize your user roles so that you can define your access mode for various users. Okay, the other thing to mention is there's a deploy button, and that's obviously for deploying the application to SAP Business Technology Platform. And we have the preview button, and the preview is actually the most important one for this scenario. That's where you can actually speed up your development. There's another button here, Share and Sync. That's basically to revision control on your application. Take note that when this page opens, it's actually opening up the guided development. You don't need that for this particular scenario. And these are the let's say the visual perspectives, the visual editors that we provide. The first one is data and a service modeler, which is a graphical modeler to create your data entities and also define your data services. Then there's a UI page navigator, which shows you the overview of all the UI pages in your application, and also shows you the navigation between those pages. And there's another editor for the pages itself, the page editor, which shows on the left-hand side a bunch of controls, which you can drag and drop onto the canvas, and you can change the properties on the right-hand side. Then the last one to mention here is the sample data editor. So in case you want to start with from scratch, let's say we have a new data services, it's always handy to have some sample data in your database, so you can add it easily with the sample data editor. Then there's the preview function, as mentioned, the most important one here. It allows you to preview the application as a web application, so you don't need to deploy anything to BTP yet. You can try out your data services. So your OData service, that you can check whether the right data is in there. And then you can click on the tile of the application. It could be more than one, depending on how many you have defined, which then opens up, in this case, the so-called ESPM application, the sample that we have created. And this one is tailored for mobile. Then for the deployment, so we provided one-click deployment to BTP. And we also provide a link to the last deployment when that was done. And you could check your logs as well. What I do want to mention is that on trial and also on free tier, we have set a limit. So you can only deploy twice. So after 2 times deployment, after 2 times deployment, you basically need to upgrade your plan or create another sub account. So that's one of the limitations that you need to take into account. This limit does not apply for the mobile app deployments. So you're only having this limit when you deploy the database and the data services. And as mentioned before, on free tier and on trial, we automatically stop your database if needed. So you might have to go into your BTP cockpit and restart. Now, the deployment to mobile front of the mobile app to mobile services, that's done through the project tree, which provides you a semantical view of your project. And in there, for the mobile-centric freestyle applications, there is a map. And when you right-click on that map, a menu pops up with the option to deploy to mobile services. Then for onboarding the mobile client on your device, you would need to scan the QR code, and that's basically, you can retrieve that from the application editor and then scan your QR code. This is the mobile service client that we are using. You can get that from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. And the way to use that is basically find it in the App Store, download it, install on your phone and run it. Then scan the QR code. You confirm the connection. Then you log into SAP. You set the passcode for, in this case, this is for a feature for enterprise security. You can add Face ID to avoid that you have to enter that passcode the whole time. Once it starts, it will check for the metadata application on our mobile services, and then it will run your application. So let me now switch to a live demo. So basically, let me just start with the environment setup. So basically, once you have set up your environment, you have everything in green, and you open up SAP Process Automation, which will open up mobile application development. And as you can see, I have a few projects in there, but basically I've created another instance of the same app, which, if I open this up, I automatically get into Business Application Studio. It will open up with this page first, guided development, which allows you to go through the steps with some guidance. In this case, I'll skip that. Let me close this. Okay, so this is the home page. Normally, you don't see that project tree. Now, the first thing to mention is the preview. Let's do a preview with sample data. I know there's currently an error on the system, but basically the preview just works. As you can see, there's a list of data sources that you can check whether they are working. And this is just outputting your raw XML data or data. And you can open up the application itself. And this is basically the app. You can go through the product list. You can add stuff. You can add sales orders. You can pick customers. Anyway, this is all stored in a local database, but you could, once it's deployed, it's stored in the HANA database, your data. Okay, this is the preview. So let me just stop this now. We stop the preview. To mention and just give a quick view into what we have, the data model editor. So basically, this is a graphical view of your data entities and the relationships. Next is the service editor. So if you open up the services, you can define what services are being exposed. Let me close this one. So the service editor in this case looks pretty similar, but it really depends on what your application wants to expose to the UI. Then the next one is the sample data. So as mentioned, you can define new data for your sample, for your, let's say, sample data for your data source. In this case, we have some electronic equipment in the list. And you can basically edit these values in the editor, or you can actually automatically generate new items. And the last one is the UI. That's basically this view, which needs to be loaded. Okay, so let me zoom in a bit. So this is the application and the structure with all the pages that are in it. And I will be opening up the editor for this particular overview page. This takes a bit of time. While we are waiting for this, I just want to mention that, let me activate my phone. So on the phone, I'm searching for SAP Mobile Services Client. I'll open that. I agree to the license. And then you have the scan button. So let me go back here for a while. So as you can see here, there's on the left-hand side, you have all the controls that you can drop onto the canvas. And you can make changes to the existing ones here on the screen. The properties of the controls are on the right-hand side. I've already deployed this application once. So as mentioned before, right-click on the map, deploy. I've done that. And what I can do now is I can open up the map, go to the application editor, and over here, you can see a button for the QR code. That's the QR code to onboard the application, the mobile application. So I'll use the scan button. Okay. No. And I'll just scan the QR code. I'll continue. I have to enter my SAP credentials. And let me just pick SAP Cloud. I log on with my credentials. I have to choose a passcode. I'll just make something that's not so secure, but anyway. Done. And here I can activate the Face ID so that I don't need to enter that passcode every time. So now the mobile development kit client is going to check the server side whether there's a new version of the app available. And yes, there is one available, so load that. So basically, this is the app on my phone with the data that is in the HANA Cloud database. I can go through the items, I can scroll through this. I can check all my products in the list. It's yeah, the UI is pretty smooth because it's basically a native UI using iOS design language, let's say. It's the Fiori design language for iOS, let's put it that way. And yeah, you can see basically everything on the app. Let me quickly go back to my editors. Okay, so some things that I want to change here, for example, the title. I want to change the title to my commerce app. And I see there's a version number in here. Let me just bump it up to, sorry, I'm typing the wrong thing. Okay, wrong keys. The version 101. And another quick change that I could do is there's some gray bars here. And actually, I would like to drop an image on that. Let me close this. So I go to the static containers, pick an image, drop it there. And actually, I need to open up one more Explorer, the File Explorer in this case, where my images are located there. And now let me find an image to drop in. So I basically just drag and drop a header into this. I hope that works. Yep. And we search for header. Okay. And another aspect that I want to change is, let me scale to fit that. Okay, so that's one thing. Actually, there's this gray bar here. Use bottom padding. I've set it to false. Okay, so instead of the gray bottom padding, I have an image there. So let's now see how that actually looks like in the preview. Let's ignore that. Nothing went wrong. And I open up the app. So now it's my commerce app, and we have that colorful bar in here now. Okay, so yeah, that's the preview. So we can quickly iterate. Could stop the preview here. We can add more stuff to the UI, but in this case, let me just do one more deployment to mobile services. So you can see here that the metadata is being rebuilt and uploaded to mobile services. Now on the mobile device, I'll switch to some other place. Let's say, let me just kill the app for a while. I'll wait until the build is finished. Takes a bit longer than I expected. Okay, so the deployment was done. Let me open up my mobile app again and Face ID, yes, okay. So it's loading. This is the original, and it will also show the data now. I'm hoping that app will check for my update. Yes, and now I confirm my update. And here's my commerce app with the colorful bar there. Yeah, so yeah, we could continue with editing the application, but basically, as you can see, it's pretty easy to build the whole application in the cloud and load it onto your phone. With that, I'm through the demo. I'll go back to the slides for the last couple of slides. So some practical recommendations. First of all, the key feature for rapid development is the preview. As you can see, the preview is much faster in showing you the whole application, including data, without having any deployments. So deployments, as mentioned, are limited in quota on trial. So yeah, that's another reason to avoid deployments. And yeah, they take a bit more time. So my recommendation is to build the application first as a web app before you focus on mobile. It's much easier to develop your application in your desktop browser. You have quite some useful tools there. It's much more efficient. Deploying and debugging on mobile is in general slower. Of course, we support it, and yeah, you have to use the underlying tools, but in my view, the best approach is to focus on the web. Then before you deploy your application to mobile, you have to have your database and your data services up and running and deployed. Because during the deployment step, the scripts will check for the OData source. Also, as mentioned, again, if you are using trial, make sure that your server is running. Your data service. So you can check that in the HANA Cloud Central, is your database running? And then in your sub-account page, there should be a service, your data service running. All right, with that, I have one more slide here to basically promote the learning. So we have great learning offerings to complement this session or other sessions where you can prepare for a certification and open up career opportunities for you. So please make use of that. And also, if you're interested, there's quite some nice contact coming for TechEd. All right. With that, thank you very much. Daniel, are there any questions still open?
Yes, I have some questions as well. So the first thing are just a moment. Are there any tutorials having to do with the setup as well as actually building this application?
So for the setup, we have our online documentation, which is describing the same steps. I do think that what I've shown here is a very comprehensive one. So yeah, we have documentation online,
okay.
and you can reference to this.
If you're able to put it into the chat or send it to me, I can put it into the chat. Particularly
Sure.
the setup. And you mentioned trial has the limitation. Can I use free tier?
Free tier is also possible, but has the same limitations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody asked what the database is locally before it's deployed.
I cannot recall the name. Sorry, I can answer later on.
Okay.
I'll answer it in the chat.
Very good. Somebody also asked if I have this QR code, do I, if somehow I got access to the QR code, could I have access to the app or to anything? And perhaps whatever the QR code gives me, maybe explain a little bit of the security setup involved. What do I need?
Let me see. The QR code here is basically a representation of a URL to a mobile services URL. So basically pointing to an application that is defined on SAP Mobile Services in my account. And the only person who has access to that is me in this case. Unless I open up the application for others to access, only I'm the one who can access that.
You would have to sign in with your BTP authorization.
Yes, correct. Right. Yes.
Okay. The lobby. Well, at the beginning, I go through the lobby, and yep. I'm a little confused because there seems to be several lobbies. Perhaps there's an effort to unify those lobbies. But this lobby was the process automation, which sort of surprised me.
The thing is that this lobby is actually combining, it's an entry point for all low-code, no-code tooling in SAP. So if you have either process automation or AppGyver or Business Application Studio, you will have access to this lobby. But there's one tricky thing at this stage that will be solved in the next month. Currently, when you subscribe to Business Application Studio, you will not have access to this lobby. So that will be solved later on. That's why, for the time being, I had to add process automation to these steps. Later on, in a month or maybe two, you don't need that anymore. Then it's individually.
Okay, it will still be a single lobby with all of the.
It will be a single lobby, which, depending on the subscription that you have, will provide you more or less content based on your subscription. So in this case, you can see quick start items for process automation as well as, in this case, the Business Application Studio content.
Okay. There was a question about process automation, not free tier, but it is free tier. Process automation was free tier 6 months ago.
Free.
It's actually available on trial as of a month ago.
Correct. So
okay,
in this list, you can see that it's free. And Business Application Studio is trial.
Right. So it's available free tier and on the trial. Somebody asked, is it possible to integrate the deployment of mobile services with CTMS?
CTMS or is it CPMS?
Don't know. Is there basically ability to create a real development environment, with a QA environment and a production environment?
Yes, you can set up your environment, so you can set up several accounts, sub-accounts, staging accounts. Yep.
Okay, but then I have something in development. I stage it. Is it simple enough to stage it to QA and then I have to push it from QA to production? Is there a mechanism like that? Or could
Okay,
somebody
that's
create a
the
mechanism?
transport type of thing.
Yeah.
That has to go through, let's say, version control, so Git repositories, let's say.
Okay. Very
Yes.
good. Okay, and just to go back, if people want to do this themselves, the documentation, how would I find the documentation for this? Do you just have it offhand?
I don't have it
Okay,
right offhand, so
you can post it in the chat.
yeah. Okay, I'll do that later.
Okay, that was really, oh, and if I created this from scratch, I could just use the low code tooling.
Oh yeah, that's one thing to mention. For if you want to build it from scratch, you can start from let's say nothing with adding your data model, your data services, and for the UI to the application, you can basically use a stepwise approach here. Give it a name. So this is a creation wizard that we provide, and you have two options here. You either create a template-based responsive application, which is more like a desktop-oriented. It's based on Fiori elements. Or you take the mobile-centric freestyle application template, and that is what we have been using just now. So that's more tailored towards web and mobile, Android and iOS. So when I go a bit further here in the steps, I have three options here for templates for now. That's basic, which is very standard. There's a list detail view, and we provide a CRUD. When you click on that, it will get you to the next step where you can select your data objects that you can use in your application. So based on what you want, you can pick certain items. Then you get to the next step. You can pick what you want here. Mm-hmm. And in the end, then you finish, and it basically generates the application for you.
Okay.
So it's installing some dependencies, but yeah, in the end, you end up with another application.
At TechEd, you'll have a session, I assume also virtual, where like a workshop where people can do this, maybe even create it from scratch?
Yes, I believe there are some colleagues involved there. I'm not involved there myself, so
okay.
But we're doing something similar there.
Very good. Thank you, Ludo.
All right.
I just want to remind everybody that at the end of the day, or whenever you finish watching all the low code, no code sessions, make sure to do the validation tutorial so you can get points towards the Devtoberfest contest, which has big prizes. So anyway, thank you everybody for coming, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
So how much did